Mark, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Which part of the world are you in right now?
I live just outside of New York City.
Wow. And is it 65 and cold, or is it like spring weather? What's it like?
It was a beautiful weekend, but today it's kind of gray and but it's a mid 60s, so it's not too bad.
I have a colleague who lives in upstate New York. He's actually up in the New York area. This morning, when I was speaking to him at about early 6 o'clock my time, he was just saying, "Man, it's 60s. I don't like the spring weather. I want summer to come back soon quickly." And I was like, Jose, it's 65 in the afternoon here in Seattle.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's good to talk to you again. It's been quite a while since we spoke. Give us a 2 minute
Absolutely.
background just about yourself and the fact that you run so many different sales opportunities. It'd be a good conversation, but talk to us a little bit about just your background before we get started.
For sure. So I've been doing fractional and interim VP of sales work for startups for most of my career. And essentially, what I do is help startups find that repeatable sale, find the accelerated sales effort, build the playbooks and all of that so they can sort of get from founder sales through to true enterprise.
That's awesome. And let's talk a little bit about that right now. Given that AI has made it so easy for people to develop, I would imagine more people are reaching out to you because the challenge now is not so much building something, it's finding somebody that has a problem and being able to do the initial selling and get the initial customer traction. Is that right, or am I a little bit ahead of the curve?
No, you're absolutely right. So AI has really changed really how people are doing outreach, how they're connecting. And it's changed in a couple of ways, and it's changing every day because as you know, where their AI outreach was great and AI even just messaging was great. And now people recognize that AI messaging. So now you want to make sure you change that so you don't look like you're just an AI bot sending this out because people recognize that and they delete it, right? So it's been really evolving and changing a lot over the last couple of years. And now it's really been very interesting how we've taken a lot of this AI outreach and really evolved it into the playbook or involved it into the playbook.
Now, when I talk to founders, Mark, they go through multiple stages, right?
Yeah.
The first stage is usually they're trying to sell only to their friends, people
Yes.
that they work with, people they work for. Then it becomes people in the network through a warm introduction of some sort, right? So they
Hmm.
are, let's say, for example, they know some VC, they know somebody else. They're like, hey, can you give me an introduction to this person? Let me do the sale. So once they've exhausted that network of both their own friends and friends of friends, then they start to get into the, okay, let me try and sell to people that are somewhat warm. Either they've opted in because they've selected to my LinkedIn or something like that. Then they go to cold, which is okay,
Right.
now I have to build a pipeline, build that whole network and
Right.
everything else. Where do they start to engage with you? And where in the process and steps do you help?
So that's right where you described that. So typically, when you've got the point where now you've got sort of your warm sales, and now you're going to moving to cold. So that's where I come in, and I kind of help you figure that out. So that's going to involve talking to your existing customers and figuring out what is your true ICP, your
Ideal customer
ideal
profile.
uh, ideal customer profile, and why are they buying, right? Like if asking them sort of like, okay, if you didn't know Fred, the CEO, why would you buy this? What has it done for you? And what we do from there is then we start to figure out sort of like what is the messaging that we've got around that. So if they say that, for example, that they're buying this because it brings down costs, or it's made them more efficient, or it's allowed them to, find things that they didn't know about their own business, depending on what the product is. Then we try to formulate a lot of the messaging around that, and we've defined who it is that we're going to attack in those organizations, and then put together kind of that cold messaging.
Got it. Tell me a little bit about ICP. I know a lot of early founders, especially on the tech side, people that I work with fairly closely. Defining the ICP previously used to be done by demographics and firmographics. That's changing as well, right? So it's no longer
Yeah.
just size of company and industry. There's a lot more to it right now with a lot more signals that are available to be able to take care of you going after the ideal customer, with the goal being you want to be able to help them because the message resonates more quicker and they are more likely to buy. How has that changed?
So definitely. So really a lot of it, when we sort of define the ICPs, a lot of it's going to be how are we going to get to them? What are the problems that they're solving, and or that they're having? How are we going to solve it? How are we going to affect their business? So rather than just saying like we're going to find CFOs in the Northeast region that have revenues between 5 and 10 million, right? It's going to be, oh, we're going to find um, CFOs that are active on LinkedIn that are, solving certain problems. And so we'll take a lot of those different things that they're doing that we can then take what we're going to do, message, how we're going to message to them, how we're going to get to them, and change sort of like what it is that we're doing around that.
When the last 2 years, I talked to a lot more AI founders or
Hmm.
companies that are building AI products. They seem to be leaning a lot more on LinkedIn than they are
Yeah.
on other mechanisms for generating that initial customer or prospect momentum, let's call it that way, right?
Yeah.
What about LinkedIn has made it? Is it because it's mostly a B2B platform that is very good for that? Or is there something more to it? Are you seeing the same with LinkedIn getting a lot more traction now among your network? Or is it still, email networks and old networks?
No, LinkedIn is really it's gotten a lot better in terms of connecting with people. I think part of the problem is that, you know, as you know, email has gotten it's just a ton of junk on there. And LinkedIn is probably going to get there where there's just too much junk on LinkedIn as well. But I find like even when you're doing stuff in the feed or you're responding, you're liking posts and things like that, it is easier to find a hook that's a little bit more relevant to people.
Yeah.
So that has helped. So for example, a lot of times what I'll tell sales reps is, you know who your targets are when they comment on something or they like an article that you think is relevant to something you're selling, that you can actually create very relevant comments back on that action, which then people respond to better than just these blanket emails that go out.
Let's switch gears, Mark. How has AI changed what you do from, let's say, 10
Yes.
years ago, 20 years ago? What are you using it for? What does it do well? What does it not do well? One of the things I've heard from a lot of people is the consistency bothers them. AI is not as consistent in getting results. The same person could ask the question half an hour later and gives a slightly different answer. Talk to me about how AI has changed your work first.
Yeah, so AI has changed inside sales, and by that I mean just like appointment setting drastically. Then the key is though, I think a lot of people still are using it wrong, right?
Yeah.
What I've been able to do very successfully is I'll use different products. There's actually a company that I've been using a lot called Outbound Labs. They're
Okay.
fantastic. They're like a real startup-y mode. But what's what people are trying too much to do is do too much in that initial messaging, right? So what I've encouraged a lot of the companies to do is you use this to just basically get to the meeting, right? So if you use AI to just basically give just enough in the SDR kind of outreach to basically get them to get to a meeting, and you don't try to do too much with answering questions and all of that, then I find some pretty high success rate on using it as an SDR to just establish meetings for sales reps. It will get there. where it can like really answer a lot more questions when people they come back. But like, for example, what I'm telling them is they'll come back and say, "Oh, does your product do XYZ? Can I use it in this sense?" And very often it's like, "That's a great you want the AI to respond with, that's a really great question. I'm happy to discuss this in more detail. Here's my Calendly link, right?" And when we use it that way, people will very often say, "All right, fine, I'll take a meeting and get on there." So when you try to do too much and have AI answer too many questions, people tend to detect that it's AI, and then a lot of times people get upset that they're like speaking to an AI bot. So
Yeah,
so that's one thing that I've used a lot. That, and I think it's very, very good at that. It's getting very good. It's getting better every day. And I'm going to contradict myself again a little bit with that. So a lot of times when you can actually start to build up some of these questions that it can answer. But ultimately, the idea is to not answer a lot of questions that way, just to get them in front of an AE, right? Where I think it hasn't yet, and again, everything I say, who knows? By the time this podcast is out, it could be completely changed
yeah,
because it's moving so fast. But I don't think it's been really great in my experience at there's a lot of found startups that are trying to like predict, like kind of like which deals are going to close and things like that. It's got some aspect of that, but it's just not. I have had minimal success with that kind of stuff where it's predicting like this is the deal you should do, that's the deal. Now maybe in a large organization that has thousands and thousands and thousands of deals, a large corporation, but in the startups, really trying to predict it, it's tough, especially because it doesn't know things like, all right, this guy's going to buy from you because you guys have the same investors, or he's a member of your fraternity and things like that. Like it doesn't know that kind of thing, and in the startup world, a lot of that matters, right? So that hasn't worked that well for me yet. And again, I qualify everything with yet because it's moving so fast, and I'm just really actually excited about using more and more of these things to make things better.
what are you using AI for? I know there are 5 use cases. So I'll give you the examples that I've heard from a lot of salespeople, right? They use it for research.
Hmm.
They use it for learning. So before they go into a company to learn about an industry, to learn about a sector, if they don't know anything about healthcare, they're like, okay, what does it mean, right? Obviously, they use it for research, as I mentioned, know about the ICP, what might be their problems, more about the persona that they're talking to. A lot of them use it for synthesis. So if there are 5, 6, 10 different documents, or they have the conference call information from maybe 10 different calls that other people have had, they put all that together into a ChatGPT and say, give me a summary, things like that. So they use it for
Yep.
summarizing and analysis. A lot of them also use it for being able to create content, craft me the perfect email, craft me the perfect request for a meeting, things like that, right? And then finally, the fifth use case that I've seen with a lot of people is beyond just the content creation, analysis, synthesis, etc., is the ability to automate and do some agent-based kind of work, early stages, which is what previously used to take me a lot of time as an inside sales rep, even as an outside sales rep to a certain extent. I want to be able to tell the customer, hey, you have this product, this other product, and this third product. How can our product fit into what you have and still do a better job of being able to help you? So I'm seeing those quite a bit. What kind of use cases are you seeing
Yeah.
salespeople use it for?
That third example, or fifth, I don't know, your last example, I forget how many you listed, but that last example is what I've actually been encouraging sales reps to use it a lot for. And it's been very successful. So the idea is that, rather than coming to a meeting with a generic presentation, is doing your research, going with, built with and all that kind of stuff, figuring out whether you ask these questions in your discovery or not, right? So finding out like what tools they have, what infrastructure they have, and then making sure that you can talk intelligently about how your product is going to mesh with all of the things that they have, and including to using ChatGPT to go out and find out like challenges that the CEO has mentioned in publicly, or initiatives that they have publicly. and making sure that you're talking to those points so that you can make the person that you're selling to, that champion, a hero to their boss, right? So using AI to just make sure that you're super prepped for the meeting. Obviously, there's all the examples of creating messaging to
Yeah.
get to that meeting, but prepping. So I built a company called Funnel Fire, which was before AI, and this was what the mission of that company was, to create software that would go out and scrape and gather all this stuff, and spent like 2 years building this business. And then now it's AI can do this in about 4 seconds. So we would have like no relevance now in today's market. But the idea of like making sure that you show up to every sales call like fully prepped with everything that's going on with that business, I find that to be, game changer. Because, what you don't want to do is show up in a meeting and find out that, like 3 hours before your meeting, they announced mass layoffs. And now you come to the meeting completely unprepared for the fact that like you now need to change your pitch relative to this. So having AI kind of like talking to you and telling you like what's going on with the company, and watching and being kind of like, that little guy in your shoulder helping you out, whispering in your ear about what's going on with the company, with what the CEO is saying, with what they're saying publicly. It's fantastic. It's been game changing for closing bigger deals.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about one of the things that I hear from a lot of founders is it's very hard, even with AI, to be able to put together a good sales process that is repeatable, especially because the early customers are coming because of the network. They're coming because they believe in Mark, they like Mark, they work with Mark.
Hmm.
Now, the next leap of faith is someone that doesn't know you well. Your product, your messaging, your value proposition has to stand on its own. The early guy's value proposition is Mark's the guy. He's going to get it done for me. Now, the
Yeah.
value proposition is, yeah, Mark is as good as anybody else, but now I needed to solve this problem for me. If it doesn't solve the problem, it doesn't work. Can AI help with that?
It can. But really what a lot of I can try to talk to the startups about is, it's really important to be creating, kind of a lot of thought leadership and, content out there to just basically help you solidify what the salespeople are saying. So when the salespeople are going in cold, there should be enough content and things out there to basically justify the fact that what you're saying is true, and what you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do is true, right? So that part really hasn't changed from what has was before, but AI can kind of help you really like, amplify that, right? And make sure that that's out in the right places, and that you're talking to it accurately. So when the sales reps go out, that they can, reference a lot of this stuff. And it kind of the same thing I was saying before, which is being able to like take all of this stuff and relate it directly to the problems and the things that this company is talking about publicly.
got it. Let me ask you the one question that I get consistently from a lot of people as well. Will AI change what the sales rep will be like in the next 5 years? And are sales rep going to be under pressure, just like every other white collar person seems to be thinking their job's in danger because of AI?
I I do think it's going to change. Uh, I think there are products that will be able to now sell themselves. I do think that will happen. There's already but that we've seen a lot of this changing happening now, right? Like if I think about the beginning of my career, it was very heavily like
Yeah, sales-led
sales led.
growth.
Yeah. And now you've got a lot of product led. I mean, people want to go in, they want to try out the product, and then they want to talk to the sales guy, right? So, like, it used to be like 9% was done before you talk to the sales guy. Now it's like 90% is done before you talk to the sales guy. So that's happening. And I think there are going to be a set of products that are going to be able to sell themselves, and they'll be able to ask questions, especially as AI gets better and better. They'll be able to ask questions about the product, and then they'll be able to go in and sell it. Super complex problems and things like that, I think there's going to be a level of people that just a level of product that's super complex and figuring out how to do stuff that for a while you're still going to need someone to come in and take somebody out to dinner and figure out how we're going to do this, and all of that negotiating and deal making I think will still happen. But one of the things is that just like when the internet came out and suddenly your prospect knew all the details about all your competitors. When I first started selling, your prospects didn't know even who your competitors were, right? So you might be able to get a sale through before they even knew about your competitors. Now, when you show up at a sales meeting, you got to assume that your prospect has researched every single competitor that you have, and you better be smart about them and really be honest and truthful and know them and how it compares with your competitors. And I think AI is going to make that just amplified, right? So sales reps who are selling those products, they're going to have to really be educated. You have to be using it. You have to know everything about your customer. You have to know everything about that, because it's just going to get that much. It gets easier, but it also gets harder. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's going to definitely keep sales are just going to keep changing as this gets better and better and better. And to answer your question directly, yeah, I do think that a lot of sales will there maybe need less salespeople. I mean, we're definitely already seeing the inside sales reps, appointment setters. It's drastically changing what's going on with employment setting. You know, I've run entire operations now without sales inside sales reps, without appointment setters, just all AI.
wow.
Yeah,
And that is just in 3 years, right? ChatGPT
yeah,
has been around just for a couple of years. Imagine previously you had a SDR, BDR, then you had account reps, and then you had field reps or AEs or whatever you want to call them.
yeah.
Now a whole layer is being replaced by AI. Some of it effective. I'm sure it'll get even more effective over time. It's not like it's not going to get there, but yeah, I think. Well, the good thing is it frees up a lot more people to go and be out there selling.
Yeah,
The challenging is roles that were considered the stepping stone to be an AE. I mean, BDR, if you remember back in the day, BDR,
yeah.
SDR were stepping stones. You cut your teeth in this role in a safer environment. You got this ability to talk to a lot of people and understand. Now you got to be out your own selling.
That is the challenge. I think about that all the time, which is if we don't have some of those early, easy, get your teeth sharpened sales roles, it is going to make the later stage selling, when you're trying to close a seven-figure deal, it's going to be a lot harder.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. This was terrific. Glad we got a chance to be able to talk. Glad we got a
Yeah,
chance to be able to go through this as well. Um, and it's been such a long time since we talked, so I'm surprised that we hadn't had a chance to talk in the last 10 years.
yeah, yeah. It was great to talk to you too.